Dear Mr. Chairman, and also timekeeper, esteemed members of the jury, members of the proposition, fellow members of the opposition, members of the House, ladies and gentlemen. 15 divisions, 150,000 men. This is the estimation of the impact of the French resistance that was given by General Eisenhower at the end of the war. And I think we can all agree that he was a first-hand witness. The resistance was therefore a force to be reckoned with. On the other hand, on June 6, 1944, more than 1 million American soldiers set foot on the beaches of Normandy to fight and eventually defeat the Nazis. 15 divisions? 100 divisions. One needed to be a genius to compute this inevitable comparison. And this is why this House believes that the US Army did more than the French resistance to defeat the Nazis. You're not convinced by Eisenhower? Well, neither am I. I believe his declaration was probably a staggering overestimation because the Americans wanted France to be a proud, strong ally in their ongoing fight against communism. That is why they flattered us and incensed the resistance. But let us first define what's really hiding behind that respectable title. What is the French resistance? What we Frenchmen call the resistance is the sum of all clandestine movements and networks who continued to fight the Nazis on French soil after the armistice was signed and until the eventual liberation. But as we're feeling particularly generous tonight, let us pretend for a second that de Gaulle and La France Libre were part of the French resistance. Even then, we were still a lot less to actually fight than the American soldiers. We might have pretended otherwise, but thank you. Because, and I'm going to let you in on a few of our secrets, we Frenchmen are opportunists. Very few fought when the issue of the war was uncertain. But when victory became uneluctable, suddenly everyone was a resistant. There can be no doubt that we were less numerous. Do you think we were more efficient? Well, without any kind of military training whatsoever, I find that hard to swallow. More organized? Well, you've been sailing in France for 1 week now, so I'm sure that's not an argument you'll try to develop now. But make no mistake, we're not denying the role of the French resistance. Of course, sabotage and gathering information were important, but we are realistic. We simply accept the fact that we had neither the might, nor the training, nor the organization of the US Army. This is why we believe that the US Army did more than the French resistance to defeat the Nazis. I can understand why you might be confused. We spent years telling whoever might listen that we had fought from the beginning to a bitter end, and that we had almost freed ourselves on our own. Yes, please.
Sure. What, in your opinion, does it mean to defeat the Nazis? Surely it can't be the number of Nazis purely killed, because then the Russians would have done the most, right, or the Soviets.
But I think the definition of defeating the Nazis is quite straightforward. In the end, when you've defeated the Nazis, you've liberated all the countries that they've occupied, and you've taken Germany. Well, so we said, yeah, we fought, we continued to fight, even though we were occupied. Well, here's another one of our little secrets. We like to our teeth. Why would our beloved government do such a thing? Well, one, its member clearly anti-American. Two, we needed to be considered one of the victorious nations at the end of the war if we were to maintain our rank in the New World Order. And three, after such a humiliation, we needed something to look up to, something to make us proud again of being French. It was essential if we were to survive at all as a nation. This is why tonight we shall endeavor to correct the lies of our fathers and educate you. Our fathers claimed that their strength was equal to that of the US Army, but my colleague Jules will expose their exaggerations, and he will show that they only fooled themselves. We were mere children compared to the might, the training, and the organization of the US Army. Our fathers claim... Yes, please.
As much as I'd like to agree with you on that point, can you really measure the effectiveness of a military movement by numbers or organization alone?
Yes. As we said, we have a complex point of view. We think that gathering information is important. Sabotage is important. But at the end of the day, the US Army could have defeated the Nazis on their own, whereas the French resistance could not. That's all. And as just saying, our fathers claimed that the US Army would never have prevailed without our help. But my colleague Sylvain will destroy that falsehood. And he will open your eyes to some harsh truth. that only a handful of us actually resisted against the Nazis, and that all we did only became relevant after the arrival of the GRs. Our fathers claimed that Frenchmen were heroes and military geniuses, but my colleague Omar will shatter their lies, and he will prove that we were just as cowardly as the next man, and probably the worst tacticians of all. Our fathers did not claim that the French resistance was a supernatural power capable of overthrowing anything that dared stand in its way. But apparently, this is the belief of our government. My colleague Joanna will demonstrate that these propositions are absurd, and that the US Army did most of the job, and it is thanks to the American GIs that we were eventually free. At the end of the Second World War, we Frenchmen needed a founding myth to build back our shattered national pride. Tonight, we do not need it anymore. Tonight, it is time we honor the real heroes of the war, those who fought for a country that was not their own. Tonight, we admit that the US Army did a lot more than the French resistance to defeat the Nazis. Tonight, we ponder the thousands upon thousands of white crosses upon the green field of grass that is the American cemetery in Normandy. And we thank those forever resting under them for doing what our forefathers could not, free us.